So welcome to another episode of the Jobs for Women podcast, How They Did It. I am excited, delighted, and so ready to chat to our guest today. We have Vicky Heward, who is the director of Optimo. Welcome to the podcast, Vicky.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
It's so good. And we met months ago when you were talking on a panel and I was like, you are awesome and I can't wait to get you on the pod.
Yeah.
We've finally made it happen. So as you know, this app is all about delving into your career to help women listening, whatever stage they're at, maybe think about getting into this area of work. So let's launch straight in. Why did you choose this career path or industry?
So I'm a business analyst. That's probably the first thing to say. All right, yeah, I think it's one of those things that never leaves me. I've been a business analyst for, I'm going to say 15 years. It might be more, it might be a little bit less. I think I've lost count along the way. And the main reason I got into it was because I liked to root around and find out why things did behave the way they did from an IT perspective. So it was a bit like when you watch TV shows and you want to see what happens behind the scenes, like if you could peel away the set and see like the man holding the boom mic, that was like how I wanted to get into IT and kind of understand if I clicked that button, where else could I end up? Those little things that you see on screen. I'm like, what does that mean? If there's a question mark, you can hover over it, something pops up. I was just really intrigued, and I don't think I really understood that it was a job at the time. I think I knew that people did it in the business that I was working in, but I didn't realize that actually it's a career, not just a job. And people do this. And I mean, a lot of people that I meet tend to fall into business analysis in some way, shape or form. They don't really, it's not something you choose to get into deliberately straight from school, which is a little bit bizarre because there's a lot of room to learn and develop from a much younger age, because I was 30 when I got into analysis, which is, I'm a pretty late bloomer compared to maybe some of my colleagues. But it's been a journey, and I still continue to learn and develop in this space. And my analytical mind doesn't just probably kind of stop at my working life. I'm always asking questions about stuff when it comes to why things happen the way they do at home. Why does a TV plug this way? What happens if I plug these two things in? Does anything happen? 9 times out of 10, no. I know it would break something, but and I'm very good at being asked to fix things because I work in as a business analyst, and obviously I work in IT, so I must know how to fix things. And that's 9 times out of 10, it's just switch off and switch it on again.
Oh my God!
It normally fixes it. So I seem that I appear to fix things, but I don't, and I can't be IT help desk for most of my family either.
That is brilliant. I loved your description about looking behind the scenes. What a great description. So what did you do? What was the pathway in? What did you do at school, A levels? Did you go to uni?
Yeah, so I did normal GCSEs, and then I went to college, and I actually did something totally different. I wanted to get into like music and production and like a completely different career, and didn't really love doing that either. Randomly, my daughter, she's 17, and she is actually pursuing the same career path as me, but a lot more successfully than I did at the time. And then I went into working life basically off the back of finishing college. I didn't find a job. Wasn't really interested in using that qualification for anything good. So I worked for a debt charity for like 16 years. I was there a long time. So I basically worked my way up into an analysis role where I was doing things like user acceptance testing or UAT for some projects when I was working on, because I was in operations. I knew what the processes were within that charity. So when something comes in, you deal with the client, you follow these steps, this is the output. And I was really good at that because I'd been there that long. I knew pretty much everything that was happening in and around my department and others. And I moved into leadership roles. So I carved a bit more space out to do some learning And also I got involved in things like new technology coming into the teams, into the departments, and I was able to get involved and help do some of that UAT, writing the scripts, kind of telling the techies how we use it, and then they would go away, do some magic, and then bring it back and go like this, and we go, and then they go, hang on a minute, like this, and you go, yay. So we went through, that's how I kind of started to see that there was somewhere else in the business that I could go rather than just leading teams who were, client focused and outward focused. And it was like a random stroke of luck one day that there was a junior systems analyst role that came up in the charity, and I was like, I could do that. But it means kind of taking away my privilege of being a manager with like responsibility of like looking after people, and kind of really taking a huge, not a backward step, but a big sideways step, completely out of my comfort zone. But I went for it, and so I basically put my application form in, did like the testing, made sure I went, did all the different scenarios. So we were tested on really like quite job specific things that were it was relevant, and it was something I could be measured on. So I knew that if I didn't get it, I'd probably be able to get some feedback about what did I need to do to improve and get me to that role, because obviously I was interested in it and enough that I was prepared to go a whole different like direction in my career. I didn't actually get the job at the interview. I was pipped to the post by somebody else, which and this is how I knew I wanted to do it, because I was absolutely mortified. I was really, really gutted that I didn't get the job. And then luckily enough, the person who picked me to the post went on, and they did really well, so much so that six months later, the person who was doing the hiring came back and got me and said, you did so well. There was literally barely anything between you and the person who was successful. We've got some space, we've got some budget, please come and be our second junior. So I was luckily enough kind of plucked back into where I wanted to be. And that's how I kind of got into doing it. So I literally started at the bottom, got in from the ground floor. I had a great mentor who really, really worked well with me. So Tammy Kennedy, she's still in the tech scene. She's doing a great job I think she's over at BT, and she took me under her wing very early on and showed me all the different tips and tricks and tools, and helped me understand what were the things that I like to do in analysis and what the things that I didn't do. So I'm not super techie as a business analyst. I can't talk code. Some BAs can, and that's great. But what I can do is I can translate between business and techie and vice versa. So if developers or testers or architects need a business answer, I can take that information and go back to the decision makers and be like, okay, so we need to know, do you want it green or do you want it pink? Do you want it this code of pink or do you want it this color of pink? Yeah. So I got very good at kind of bouncing between the two areas, and I enjoyed that the most. And my mentor, she's great. We still catch up every now and again. Even now, we kind of use each other as sounding posts as we go along. So that's been quite a long time that we've known each other. And it's just like a really beautiful harmony that we have there, and I love it.
Mentorship is huge for me and at Jobs for Women. I absolutely love that. I think it's so empowering to know that you took that sideways step. Do you think for people listening, because this comes up a lot at Jobs for Women, this changing careers, like back in the day, it was like you had one job at one company, and I feel like women, whether they have kids and decide to leave, we're all perhaps at a point where we're thinking about doing something different, and you've just shown us that it's possible to take that sideways step. For people listening that are at the earlier end of the career, at start of the career rather, do you need a degree now?
No, and I mean, I've worked obviously I've worked in not just for the charity, I've worked in consultancy as well for over 5 years, and worked quite a lot in recruitment because I really enjoy meeting new people and diverse talent and encouraging people from all sorts of backgrounds to get into analysis and into the companies that I've worked at before. And I think it's a bit of a misconception. It's great to have qualifications. So with being an analyst, you can go through the BCS qualifications, you can get yourself a diploma. There are international diplomas as well. And then there are more specific qualifications that you can get around working in Agile, working in Scrum, all these different types of things. And they are all great. I'm definitely not going to poo-poo on those, but they're not necessarily the essential thing to get your foot in the door. And a lot of people will use them as a kind of an accessory to their experience. So, your experience isn't always about being experienced in the job role. It's about the transferable skills that you can bring into those job roles. So you might have worked, in a completely different office environment doing something totally different, but your transferable skills might be your communication. They might be, facilitating conversations or writing detailed reports that you can then use those skills and bring them over to what you were doing. I've interviewed people, met over the years who have come from all walks of life and found themselves in analysis roles and gone on to being product managers, product owners, all sorts of different kind of tech roles along the way, and use the analysis kind of skill set as the base for moving on to other things. And the same when you want to come in, it's like, don't look at, I think for women, we always look at a job description. We go, okay, there's 10 things on there. I need to be able to, show you how I can do all 10 of those and how I've got experience. Whereas I think there's our counterparts who probably will look at it and go, I can do 3 or 4. I'll just go for it and see what happens. And I think we probably need to be a little bit more on that side of going, I can do some of it and I can learn the rest. And I think having the right attitude and drive to want to learn and want to develop yourself and want, it's quite hard to quantify, I suppose, in a test, but an aptitude for wanting to learn and wanting to be in the next role that you're inspiring to be is a huge skill and talent to have, and be able to show and demonstrate that to somebody can be quite hard. But I think with the right recruitment processes and the right people involved, that it comes out in your behavior and how you talk and your passion.
Oh yeah, 100%. And just to pinpoint what you said about the right recruitment process, we know that so many companies don't have it, but yeah, and I'm with you on the transferable skills. Also, what I'm hearing you say is there's kind of 2 different types of analysts almost, that you don't have to be able to read code, like you said. And I think that's how the battle, isn't it? Breaking down those barriers.
Yeah.
And what obstacles have you faced? Like you're smashing your career. You're now a director. I know that you're diversity and equality enthusiast, which I love. Woo woo. What about obstacles? What have you faced in your career that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of stories that I shared. I think maybe one of them you heard when I did my Whip Boss event, but there was one. There's been challenges, especially working, maybe more so working in consultancy, but you go into these roles and then these engagements with clients they're not necessarily very pleased that you're there, because somebody's brought you in, but it might not be the people that you actually day-to-day work with. And those, I've been in meetings where I've kind of just really been ignored, being spoken over, being kiboshed. And partly I could come up with a few reasons why, being the only woman on that call or the only woman on that engagement, and that's really hammered in my imposter syndrome, that horrible feeling that you get at the bottom of your stomach when you're just like, oh God, and you want a hole to open up in the floor and you can just sink in and disappear and nobody ever notices. So I've been in situations where I've had clients that have been quite negative towards me being there, and I think some of it's been around how I've got to overcome that. Some of it is just being consistently showing up despite that horrible dread that you get getting out of bed on a morning, but knowing that I've got to keep going because I want to get to the end. I'm also really stubborn, so I don't like to give up easily. But that being said, on this particular engagement, I did hold my hands up and speak to the management and say, look, I don't feel like I'm making progress. I've tried every single avenue that I feel like, speaking to individuals on a one-to-one basis, because these negative behaviors were coming out in group environments. So it was like, okay, speak to them one-on-one. There was no problems. Nothing was being raised. I was making very little progress, so deadlines were creeping up and things were falling behind, and I was like, okay, I need to get help. And I think that's one thing is where we probably more so as women, where we face adversity, it isn't a bad thing to kind of ask for help if you feel like you have reached the end of everything that you can do to move something into a positive, or in the right way, so that you can get a resolution out of it. I was really lucky that the management team who I was working with were really supportive. They made sure that they followed up on the channels behind the scenes, and they brought the issues up, and I got an apology at the end of it, which was quite surprisingly well received. I was very polite about it. I took the apology. You kind of know that it was forced to be given, but it's still it was still an experience of massive imposter syndrome, and still something that like plays in the back of my mind. But I'm also really, really grateful that I had that support system of the senior managers around me who listened to me, who took my concerns, as seriously as what I was feeling. They understood my emotions and how I was feeling about it, and they helped resolve that in the best way that could be done for both the business and for the clients that we were working with at the time.
I think that's also a great message for anyone listening about, like, you're so successful and you've been there, done it, got the t-shirt, had the imposter syndrome, but actually calling out the behavior is huge. It's like that grassroots approach, isn't it? We talk about that all the time at Jobs for Women. So we've talked about challenges. What any highs, any like, that is my career highlight to date?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I think this is going to sound really cheesy. I think being able to, because I've worked for other people. This year is the year that I moved into working for Optimo, which is a business that my wife started, and it was always kind of our grand plan was we met working together, and we always thought we worked so well together, we should do this as like an actual business. And I think being able to kind of walk away from working for somebody else and actually being a director in a business where people rely on me to like make decisions and stick to them and pay the bills and do all the kind of things that running a business comes with, that's probably a pretty good moment in my career so far. And absolutely scary as anything kind of decision at the same time, but still, yeah, one of the moments where I think this was the right decision for me. And I suppose when you know it feels right, it is the right thing for you. And you've got to kind of, I'm a very firm believer in trusting your intuition and your gut. And if it feels right on the inside, then you've got to give it its minute and enjoy it.
Yeah, 100%. I hear you. I feel you. So my next question is like, what is the day to day? Like what, and that this leads in perfectly because you can tell us a bit more about what Optimo do. So like when you wake up, what does your day look like?
So I'm going to be like sounding like a bit of a cliche. I get up and I go to the gym normally. So I go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, normally get up 6:15, which people are like, that's an ungodly hour. I know, but the reason why I go to the gym so early is my body is not awake, and I get myself to the gym, I do my class, and by the time I've finished, my brain catches up with my body and goes, oh, we're doing stuff, okay. So it's enough time that I can do something without my brain actively realizing that I'm making it, do something silly to keep me fit. It's also a really good form of like, it's good for my mental health. It's like, yeah, I find it like therapy for me. Going to the gym is that for me. It's really good. So then do the gym, get home. We normally have I have a stand-up call with my team on a morning. That's just to go through kind of what their focus is for the day, making sure that they're up to speed with everything that they're tasked to do. So whether that's our marketing guys, our guys that run the floor doing delivery and working with clients, giving them the opportunity to bring any problems, any things that they've got kind of blocking their way for that day or for the days ahead. And then we kind of go into our day. So when you're in a small business, you're kind of a jack of all trades. So I'll do a little bit of planning and strategy, so where we're going to be heading to in the next couple of months, whether we're doing networking events. So myself and the director Danielle will sit down and go, right, where are we planning to go to networking, which meetings do we want to be seen at, that kind of stuff, who do we want to be speaking to about potentially speaking at those events and being participating in those. So normally do go have a bit of time going through there. Once a week we sit down and we have a team meeting. They're normally like 20 minutes of just chatting and getting, having that time together, because we all work remotely in our homes. We get together in person once a month to actually see each other and high five and pat each other on the back. But it's nice to have those team meetings every week. Then it's a little bit of marketing. So where are we heading with our marketing? Who are we speaking to? What posts are we putting out? Thinking about blogs, case studies from our clients, then speaking with our clients to see, making sure that they're happy. So a little bit of account management. And then at some point we do really try and get out and do a little bit of a lap of the of where I live here in Leeds. So a little bit of green space. One thing I really enjoy is just having a walk around the block where I can hear the birds and not the cars and the traffic and and all the other distracting noises. So being around a little bit of greenery on a daily basis really helps kind of quieten the mind a little bit, especially with all those other things that are happening.
Busy.
Yeah.
We've got to just get in, because we spoke off the pod about the B Corp, because in amongst all of that, you've also talk to us about that.
Yeah, so for kind of those who might not know, so B Corp is a B Corp certification. It's awarded to organisations, and basically it's a certification to say that you are an ethical business in terms of both people and the planet. So it's basically available to people, anybody actually, any organisation can apply, go through the process. It's not easy, but it's a really good lens to put your business under in terms of how ethical are you with the business that you run, how do you think about the people that you're doing business with, so whether they're your clients, your suppliers, your employees, your associates, anybody that you basically have any involvement with, and it puts a lens over various areas of your organization to make you think, are you paying your staff fairly against there's the minimum living wage versus the national minimum wage. So it's understanding the differences between the two, making sure you've got things for your employees, like, do you have, are you kind of keeping track of how diverse your workforce is? Do you understand how diverse your suppliers are and who your clients are, and have they got policies around diversity, inclusion, or around sustainability, all those types of things. So it's a certificate that that Optimo have been working towards for about 18 months in total. So my wife started before I joined, and just at the back end of August we were finally awarded our certification. So we are actually, I have to get this right, we are the first Yorkshire-based female-founded LGBTQ plus consultancy. So it's a mouthful, but yeah, it's something we're really, really proud of, because it's been a lot of hard work from the team to pull together all the facts and the figures, because it's a lot of data that you have to prove. It's one of those things that it's a great certification to have. It's a difficult process, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it and everybody would have one, and it's not that easy.
Makes you stand out. Well, well done. You should be immensely proud of yourself. So we have to wrap up pretty soon, but I've got just a couple more questions left.
Sure.
Looking back, is there anything that you wish you'd have done differently in your career?
That's a really good question. I think I probably would have got into analysis a lot sooner than waiting until my 30s. Although 30s is a great era for me, it brought me an awful lot of fun. It definitely was probably something that I could have done a lot sooner, and experienced a lot of different organizations in that role. So whilst I spent a long time working for a debt charity, and quite a lot of that time I was working as an analyst, and I think when I left it and I started experiencing how analysis was used in other organizations, it really started to see my own personal and professional growth. So I think that would be one of the things I would have done, is I would have got into it a lot sooner.
Yeah, great answer. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received that you'd like to pass on to someone considering a similar career path or even a career move?
Probably two things. Yes, it's going to be really, really scary, but do it. Do it petrified, do it scared, but do it, because I think I read once, I think it was a Brené Brown quote or something that was like, you can, you can do it, whether your brain will tell you you can't, but you should run towards the things that absolutely petrify you. And I love that. That's one of the things that like I sit in my mind. This year I overcame a massive fear of standing in front of 100 people and telling my story about how I got to where I was in my career. I've never stood in front of a room of 50 people, never mind 100 people. And it was one of those things, I was absolutely petrified. It's not my comfort zone, despite being an analyst who normally stands in front of people and plays things back to them. Talking about yourself is horrible. So do things that absolutely petrify you. And I think the extra bonus one I'll kind of say is find people that will not only be your cheerleaders, but will also challenge you. So you don't want people around you that will just be like, oh yeah, you're so right. You want somebody to go, but is that really what you want to do? Like, is that the right thing to do? You want somebody to challenge your thinking, not just to be your whoop, whoop. Yes, they're great, but you want somebody just to make sure that they give you a reality check as well. So whether that's what the same person or whether these are two different roles that you have in your life, definitely find those people that give you that balanced view.
Brilliant advice. And my final question, what kind of impact do you hope to leave in your field?
Oh gosh. I hopefully would like to think that I will leave a legacy of people being genuine and authentic in who they are, in whatever role that they have. And whether that's as an analyst, as a director, as whatever it is, being your authentic and normal self and being able to be you as an individual is really powerful. Whether you're in a minority or a majority, whatever it is, when people can see you for who you really are, that's where the magic really comes.
Amazing answer. Thank you so much for joining us, Vicky. That was so insightful. I always learn so much on these chats. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I've had so much fun.